Hello, welcome to Impact 2021, the conversation, or the continuing conversation that we have about relevant issues in our community and in our society. And as we continue the conversation, uh, we go on this week with another good conversation to have. Um, and just as a reminder before we get into it, please feel free. This is an ongoing conversation to type your questions and your comments into the comments section, and they will be discussed. Um, and so feel free to put up whatever you want in there. As we see it, it will get discussed. All right, so let's hop right into it. The new, I guess, format that we've had for the past couple of weeks is one week we set up the conversation, and the next week we have it with some guests. So this week is the setup of the conversation, and following up next week, we will continue on the conversation with some guests. If you were with us before in the previous weeks, we talked about some current news that's been going on between churches and going on in the church community. And so you can say there is a little bit of trouble that is going on out in the community. And the question is whether it's good trouble or some bad trouble. And so last week we pointed out that the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest church organization in the United States, or the largest convention of churches in the United States, voted to get rid of some churches or to expel some churches from the convention. And the reason being for two of the churches was their acceptance of LGBTQ people into their ministry. Specifically, there was an LGBTQ couple with 3 children who is accepted into one of the ministries, asked if they could join the church. The church said yes. And as a result, the Southern Baptist Convention voted them out. And then yesterday, so today is the 2nd of March, yesterday on Monday, the 1st of March, the second largest organization in the United States, the United Methodists, have now voted to split based on the issue of LGBTQ clergy. And so the majority of the United States-based Methodist churches voted to keep the organization together. They voted it's okay to, if some particular churches want to have LGBTQ, clergy, people in leadership, but the majority of churches, which includes the United States and other countries, African countries, South American countries, decided that they wanted to split. And so now there will be 2 organizations based on still not official, but there should be 2 organizations, which is the Global Methodist Church and then the Traditional Methodist Church, which reportedly has about 12 million members throughout the world. And so you have the first largest and the second largest in the country who are having splits over the issue of LGBTQ. And I want to make sure I try to get that right. Q plus, I think is what it's called now. Why is that issue important? Why is that relevant to Impact 2021? Well, if you go even further back, we've had some discussions with different leaders of different ministries, of different churches, who talks about the inclusion of people when we're talking about the fight towards social justice, and we're talking about the fight towards making sure that people come into a relationship with Christ. And so we have to be accepting of all people. It's ironic, I think, that we're having this trouble, these battles, these separations, that organizations want to separate and have totally different churches based off of this. There was one other group that recently split away. It was the Episcopal Church that split away based on the same thing. It was the more conservative group of churches in Texas that decided to split away as well. And so this has become a pattern. It's become a pattern of, they characterize it as more conservative churches who want to split away, and we have more liberalized churches who want to be accepting of different types of people, and you have conservatives who are wanting to be more hardline, but specifically it's coming into play with LGBTQ. And there's 2 different arguments here, or 2 different situations here when we're talking about these churches, where you have the Southern Baptists who are just saying you can't have people join, and they're kicking the churches out. Whereas you're having the Methodists say, we have more issue with people in leadership. We can't have we can't have LGBTQ leadership, bishops, pastors, in the clergy positions. And so there's different arguments there. Again, so let's circle back. Why is this important to what we're talking about here and what we've been talking about over the past almost a year now? And that is the fight for social justice is not just for race, is not just for gender. It's for bringing in everyone. And so the question that we have to discuss is, as churches, what is our responsibility to those who don't agree or are not following all of the principles of church? And so how do you walk hand in hand in justice and when you have people of different ideals who want to walk with you towards social justice, who are participating in the marches, who are participating in the protests, who are participating in pushing legislation from diverse backgrounds? How do you participate with them as the church if you're going to participate in this movement, but yet shun these individuals? How are you going to welcome in the community into your churches and yet shun these individuals? And so it's a weird question. It's a weird dynamic. And I don't want to put out there that there's some easy answer one way or the other. Like the conservative group of Christians who are deciding, the more conservative churches who are deciding, hey, we don't want LGBTQ here because of this and because of this. They're not wrong. They're not right. What's the discussion point? And so that's what we want to bring in guests that could really kind of get there. One of the things that, I noted when I was looking into this is that you look at different churches. I'll say what a comedian said, because oftentimes comedy gives you some of the best insight. Comedians sat back and said, you got all of this problem with people who are gay and lesbian and trans and all of these other things, but yet you try to sweep under the rug when someone who is a leader in the church, when the pastor or the clergy or the bishop or whoever harms one of the little boys. And so the comedian was pointing out the irony there, where we had these big scandals in these larger churches where you had, molestation and other little scandals like this, and you try to slide that under the rug, but yet you're going to sit back here and you're going to point at people who were have just different sexual orientations or preferences. We do have a comment for slave owners to ask to leave the church. Great question, or great comment. The irony is we're asking people to leave the church because of their sexual orientation, but we're not asking, right, we didn't put out, or especially these conventions or organizations that we're talking about, who were the home to many of the slave owners, many of racist individuals, many of the individuals who participate in Klan type activities. Were you putting them out? Were you speaking against that evil? Are we putting out people who drink too much? Are we putting out people who lie all the time? Are we putting out people who don't honor their mother and their father? Are we putting out people who are doing other sins? Why are we queuing in so hard on LGBTQ when we say come as you are, which was what the guest pointed out last week? We should be accepting everybody in, sinners and all. So why aren't we putting out every sinner? And then if we do, our churches would be empty. Another good comment: are drug addicts and drunks asked to leave the church? A great point. Now, I will say there's some churches that, I know in our community here, there are some churches who can handle certain things and some churches who cannot. Now, why they cannot or should they be able to, that's whole nother discussion point. But we know that there's some ministries who focus in on some things. There's a ministry we have near here that focuses in on individuals who've had criminal past. They have a lot of individuals in their fold who have had criminal past. All churches can't really handle that. All churches shouldn't be expected to handle that, I don't think, but some people may disagree with that. And so I think it's different churches from different things. But I do think it gets a little bit problematic when you have a convention who just decides, hey, let's just put all of these churches out. Hey, you would think you got some black churches, you got some white churches, you got some churches with a older crowd, you got churches with a younger crowd, you got churches who are more active in the community, you got churches who are more active in trying to do things, social things, such as, hey, we're going to do home ownership and different things. We have different churches for different reasons. And so the discussion point really is, are these splits good for the church? Is it a cleansing period of where we're cleaning out, different organizations for different things? Is this a bad thing? Is this a fracturing of the church? Is it a sign that the church is in trouble? It has been less. I haven't really seen it as much in black church organizations. But that doesn't mean it's not a topic point there. But the topic point in the discussion that we're going to have is the sectionality between how do we continue to say that we're about justice? How do we continue to say that we are about equal rights? How do we continue to say that we are pushing towards just an equal playing field for everyone, and then push out certain people? How do we show people the love of God if we are saying that people can't be here? And so I hope that's not looking too opinionated based on how I'm saying it, but that is the discussion point that we're going to have. We're working to make sure that we have a good panel of people to be able to discuss this next week. I hope that you will join us next week in this discussion with not only your viewership, but also your comments, and so that we can really talk this out, because this is a live event. As I said, the Methodists did this, had a vote on this yesterday. Even though this is an issue that they've been kind of wrestling with for years, they talked about this yesterday. And last week, it was just that the Southern Baptists did this. So really, really a good topic. Good. We have another comment. Good comment. Man is not in the position to judge a person's lifestyle. You know what? I think that's absolutely right there and on. If you are so convicted and you feel a certain way as far as what your lifestyle is and what God is doing, you'll change it on your own, or you'll come to the conclusion that you need to change. Now, I know some people who lie all up and down. I know people who've been in church and they lie all up and down every which way. And everybody know they lie, but they're not getting kicked out because people hope, I think they hope, that eventually maybe God will convict them and they'll stop lying as much. And so I don't understand why we can't do that with everything. And I think that there, when it's all said and done, for me personally, I think there'll be some liars in heaven. I think there'll be some, there'll be some people who don't honor their parents at all in heaven. There'll be some people who steal in heaven. There will be plenty of sinners or people who have sinned in heaven. Who you are is not who you always are going to be. And everyone will not get over every sin. And that's my 100% personal opinion. So again, I thank all the comments that were coming in. I thank everyone who's joined us. Again, that's been our pattern lately. We set it up one week. Next week, we're going to go into it. And so please join us next week when we heavily get into this topic of the splits in churches, LGBTQ, and our responsibility as churches if we're going to be a part of the movement towards social justice. How do we handle this situation? Thank you for joining us tonight. I know it was a quick night, but please be with us next week. And if you feel like this is a good topic, tell your friends. Everybody join us. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for being with us. This is Impact 2021. We will be here again next week. Please join us. Thank you and have a good one.